Okay, so the first thing we have to have a look at in a wine is the clarity. In very simple terms, it is the absence of substances, absence of particles in the liquid. In another term, you can also think about the light passing through the wine. How much light does pass through the wine? This is the first concept that we have to analyze. In order to analyze this, you take the glass and you have a look at it in this manner from different angles to understand the opacity, the luminosity of the wine. And when we talk about all these characteristics for visual analysis and for olfactory analysis and for taste analysis, it is generally not a bad idea to have a layering in your mind, have some levels in your mind. As a rule of thumb, I would suggest you to have 3 layers in your mind, 5 if you can, if you're really nuanced and very particular, but 3 is a really great way to start. For example, if too much light can go through the wine, you can say it's very luminous, it's very clear. It's really shining. You know, you can also be creative with the adjectives and with the verbs that you use. Or you can say it's medium clear, if you maybe observe some particles that are there for some reason, and we're going to talk about that. You can say it's medium clear, or you could say it's really hazy, it's even faulty. If you think about a wine, white wine for example, that's not filtered or that has some sort of faults even, you can say it's faulty. In Italian we say velato, you know, and it's a really bad characteristic that a wine shouldn't have. But to sum up this thought, it's about the absence of the particles, absence of the solid substances in the liquid that create the clarity, that create the luminosity in the wine. Now, I want you to understand why is it really important for us to think about this. Generally, the wines that we're going to analyze in degustations in normal life, they are filtered, so they're going to be limpido. They're going to be clear. They won't really present particular problems. However, there are 3 cases that I can think about in which a wine may present some sort of less luminosity, some sort of less clarity. And you know, these things are clues. Think of yourself as a detective. You're trying to understand the nature of the wine that you have in your hand, and you started with the visual analysis and from the first component, which is the clarity, and even the observation of some particles, observation of less luminosity or a lot of luminosity can be clues to understand the spirit of the wine. That's why it's important for you to make logical connections with the observations and with the true nature of the wine. First of all, especially for red wines, if you observe that there is a high level of opacity, or if you really observe that there are some substances that are in the liquid, it can be due to the aging. Some, you know, big wines like Barolo, Bordeaux, that have been aged for quite some time, they may, due to some chemical reactions in the wine, they may present some substances. This is the natural phenomenon that occurs in those wines. And you know, if you have such a wine in your hand, this can be an idea in your mind. Without even smelling the wine, you could say, maybe I'm now faced a red wine that has been aged for some time, so my expectations on the olfactory level are going to be conditioned based on this observation that I made about the clarity. So big wines, especially big red wines that have been aged in barrique, due to the maturation, due to some chemical reactions that happen, may present some substances. Another instance that may influence the clarity of the wine is the yeasts, because some producers, they choose to put the yeast in the wine to add an extra layer of maturation, to add an extra layer of complexity. In this case, of course, when you serve the wine, you're going to observe that there are some particles in the air, and this really is not something negative, as long as these are the choices, these are the natural choices of the producer. This is just an observation you make, but this has a clear impact on the clarity of the wine, on the luminosity of the wine. And the third case is the biodynamic, organic, natural wine producers, because most of the time I told you that there is a lot of filtration through the wine because the producers, they want to obtain a wine that's totally limpido, that's totally clear, that's really appealing in that dimension. But by choice, some producers, they really don't go with the filtration method, especially those producers that have a low intervention philosophy. They want to give the wine as they are, so they don't apply a lot of filtration. Again, this is not something negative, but if you observe that in those wines, some substances that are in the liquid, this may be a question that you may ask yourself, especially, for example, if you're not with a wine that has been aged a lot, but you observe these substances, you can say, now am I face to face with the biodynamic producers? You may then shape your questions better to the producer to get into the world of this wine much better. You see, I try to make some logical connections based on even the simplest observations that I made about the clarity of the wine. But as a result, most of the wines that we're going to taste in our life, they're limpido. It's the term in Italian. They're clear. They don't really have particular problems when it comes to clarity, when it comes to luminosity. And the second observation from myself to you is to use your imagination, use your creativity. If you're face to face with a wine that's really limpido, that's really luminous, you can say this. The wine is luminous. The wine reflects a lot of light. We see a lot of light presence in this glass. You can be creative with the adjectives and the verbs you use, because the idea here is to make us understand, make another person understand as well as possible the true nature, the true characteristics of the wine. That's what I have to say about the clarity.